The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Before we get started, we just want to do a quick sound check to make sure everybody that's attending via webinar can hear us. The way we'll be able to tell is if you would please raise your hand using the hand icon. Got a couple participants, but no hands raised. Let me see. Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Welcome and thank you for attending the Colorado Dental Board stakeholder meeting via webinar today. Today is May 25th, 2021, and it is 2:01 p.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Elena Kemp, and I'm a regulatory coordinator with the division. Also, we have attending Yukon Morford, he's the program director, and Darcy Magnuson, she is the regulatory analyst. In compliance with the governor's orders regarding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the board as it considers adopting revisions to the rules. More specifically, today we will be discussing the proposed changes to Rules 1.25 and 1.26 to implement Colorado Senate Bill 21-102. That bill is concerning the continuation of specific dental hygienist functions and, in connection therein, implementing the recommendations contained in the 2020 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the board's website by the close of business tomorrow. And as the stakeholder meeting is held solely via webinar, please raise your hand by using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so you can be heard by everyone. Or you can type your question in the comment, or you can type your comment or question in the question section and we will read it aloud. Before we begin taking comments, I want to ask that everyone that is planning to provide comments, please state your name and the name of the organization that you represent, if any. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and try not to repeat something that was already said. Stating you're in full agreement with someone else works just fine, and we will note that. Couple housekeeping matters. If you are using audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether or not you're using computer or phone audio, try to keep all background noises to a minimum when speaking. So at this time, we'll open the floor for stakeholders to provide any input or feedback that you may have. And once again, all you have to do is raise your hand. And what's showing on the screen currently is the redlined version, although it's in blue. But everything in blue are the changes that are being proposed and considered. And then also the comments on the side, Darcy has included and talked to the board in a collaborative effort. So you'll see on the side there's board comments. And if stakeholders have anything to add to that or anything that you think should be clarified, that would be helpful for the board members to hear as well. Oh, looks like we have one hand raised. Miss Mary Catherine Dean, I'm going to unmute your line. It looks like you're self-muted.
Shoot. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I wanted to address my name is Mary Catherine Dean. I'm the program director for the Community College of Denver's Dental Hygiene Program. I do have one concern regarding the hours required for training for interim therapeutic restorations. The removal of the 4,000 hours and the dropping would mean that we now must work with CODA, the Commission on Dental Accreditation, to find a way to add this course into our curriculum, which, while we're already very credit heavy, this would create somewhat of a burden in our curriculum. And so I would ask that there be some type of hourly requirement that would require post-graduation training for dental hygienists, one, so that they have the skill level and understand the impact and they're not newly graduated dental hygienists, but also because it is adding yet one more skill and activity for us to provide education for within a curriculum that already includes, in addition to the background of dental hygiene, we've got local anesthesia, nitrous oxide and analgesia, and we have lasers. So it's just a lot. And the way that the CODA recommendation reads is that if the state has this as a procedure that's legal for dental hygienists upon graduation, then we need to at least offer that course for our graduates so that they have the opportunity to take that training.
Okay, and I just to clarify, I just want to make sure that I'm showing the correct section of the rules that you are to. It's section in Rule 1.26C.
Yeah, if you, okay. So not the silver diamine fluoride. I thought we were on the therapeutic restorations.
Oh no, you're welcome to comment on any part of the rules. I just want to make sure that I am in the correct rule and the correct section.
So it was regarding the interim therapeutic restoration. I believe it was when you were first showing. Is there a section above that? Yes. So it's the removal of the 4,000 hours right there, item B, or 2,000 hours. Those have been
Oh, here we go. Okay.
struck.
Okay, and so basically you are saying that you do not want these provisions stricken. Is that what you're?
If I would prefer not, or some lesser amount of hours would be fine. But if we totally remove the hours, then it becomes a burden on the 4 dental hygiene programs to offer yet another course in the curriculum so that the students are trained.
Got it. Okay.
And this is Darcy. I just wanted to point out in the comment there, that language was stricken in the Senate bill. So that's why we took it out of the rule. So.
And I'm sorry. I mean, we apparently we tried to make that clear, but apparently I didn't communicate that well enough when I raised my concern. And I missed that opportunity, I guess. That was my only comment.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to place you on mute. I got a hand raised by a Dr. James Grant. I'm going to unmute your line. Looks like you're self-muted.
How about now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great, thank you. Yes, I'm Dr. James Grant. This is more of a semantic thing that's a change that's coming. The Code Maintenance Committee function is that every March they meet and they accept, delete, revise, or editorialize the CDT, which is the basically it's the book that we use in dentistry for billing purposes. And what happened was at the March meeting in 2021, they've decided to make an editorial change to code D 1354, and that is the code you would use to do for instance, a silver-diamine fluoride. So the descriptor is that the interim caries arresting medicament application per tooth. It's a conservative treatment of an active, non-symptomatic carious lesions by topical application of a caries arresting or inhibiting medicament and without mechanical removal of sound tooth structure, which is exactly what an ITR is what you're talking about. So what the Code Maintenance Committee decided, and there are basically 20 members in this, 20 committees within this committee. They're the governing body with stakeholders that make these applications and these different rule changes. So what they've done is for the 2022 CDT manual, they have removed the word interim and application. It read an interim application of caries arresting medicament per tooth. Well, now the change that they've adopted and accepted for the 2022 CDT manual is just application of caries arresting medicament per tooth. And the rationale for that was it says that the proposed editorial action clarifies without changing the scope and clinical aspects of the procedures delivered to a patient, which I believe is exactly what an ITR is. However, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion when you're submitting an insurance claim and D 1354, because it now says it has removed the word interim, so it's no longer an ITR. And the rationale says, they said, therefore, inclusion of the word interim in the nomenclature has no bearing on the manner in which the procedure is delivered. So I believe this is true, and as a practicing dentist, and I also think that leaving the description as it is now, ITR, it just needs to be clarified, I think, because as I said, it used to be an ITR for 1354, but the word interim has now been removed. So that's really all my comments.
So just so that I can capture this correctly, what are you're just suggesting that the word interim be removed?
Yes, I do. Because of the rationale now that, and this action request, which they're sent the November of the previous year, and then the committee reviews them and does their due diligence and decides whether to accept it or not. I think they've only accepted 16 new codes for next year, and they've done a few other changes. And this is, as I said, an editorial action request. This was submitted by the American Dental Association Council on Dental Benefit Program. So I think it's probably going to be a pretty official definition of D 1354, which does not have the word interim in it any longer. It used to, but it no longer does.
Okay,
so I think
that's to align with, I just want to make sure I'm capturing that correctly. The term interim was removed by, what was the name of the association or board?
Well, it's called the Code Maintenance Committee, and basically they're the official committee that has 20 other subcommittees, if you will, that's represented by all the dental specialties. There's insurance companies in there. There's other dentists. They're the committee that meets every March and then takes all these action requests. I think there was over 100 this year, and then they filter them down. And they only reviewed 48 this year, and of those 48, only a few, I think 16 new codes, and I can't tell you exactly how many other revisions and deletions there were, but that's what they do every year. And they meet at the American Dental Association. So what they decide is the publication of all the changes for the CDT manual, which you're you're a dentist or hygienist, you absolutely know what that is. That has over 700 codes in there that you use to bill your procedures. And so this one code, 1354, used to say interim caries arresting medicament application per tooth, which is a silver diamine fluoride. But in 2022, it will no longer say interim. And that was their decision. I actually sent this CDT submissions in an email earlier. I think it was last week. So you should have that if you wanted to review it. I'm just condensing and summarizing what the action of the Code Maintenance Committee Board has decided. Am I making that clear?
Yes, you are. And I appreciate your written feedback that was previously submitted as well. The board will see that prior to the permanent rulemaking hearing, and they'll be able to listen to this recording as well. So that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I have a hand raised by Ms. Alyssa Aberly.
Hold on one second, Elena. So I just wanted to point out that the statute still uses interim therapeutic restoration. So we're aware that that hasn't been changed in statute. So, and our rules should be consistent with the statute.
Thank you. Thank you, Darcy. All right, Ms. Aberly, I'm unmuting your line.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Alyssa Aberly. I'm representing the Colorado Dental Hygienists Association. I submitted some written testimony this morning. I didn't know if you wanted me to comment here on all of the items. There were quite a few, but I did want to respond to Dr. Grant's comments. He's referring to the silver diamine fluoride CDT code, which is D1354, but interim therapeutic restoration is actually a different code. So there's two things that we're talking about here. We're talking about silver diamine fluoride application, and then we're talking about the interim therapeutic restoration, which is the glass ionomer placed as a restoration. And the CDT code for interim therapeutic restoration is, let me just pull it up here. It's a D2941. And so they're two different things that we're talking about. And so I agree with Darcy. We need to, one, stay consistent with what's referenced in statute, but also the language that's used in the CDT book as well. But they're two different procedures that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
And did you want me to make all my comments verbally, or is the written okay?
The written is fine, but to facilitate a deeper conversation, if you'd like to kind of cover some of maybe the main topics or bullet points, since other stakeholders are here and can listen and chime in, that would be helpful. Either way.
Sure. Do you want me to go in the order that you're going, or would you like me just to go through my list?
You can go through your list. I'll follow.
Okay, perfect. Let me get on the right screen here so I can show you. Okay, so our first comment was in Rule 1.25 Part C, and we agreed with removing Part C as it duplicates the requirements that are outlined in statute, and we felt it was redundant.
I'm sorry, you said you agree with removing Part C?
Yes, so under 1.25 C, we agreed with the previous statement to remove that section C there.
Gotcha. Okay. Section C is.
And then in section D, the board was trying to define what an interim therapeutic restoration was, and there was some discussion at the last meeting about pediatric and non-pediatric patients, and CODHA at this time recommends actually just removing Part D because interim therapeutic restoration is already defined in statute, and clarifies that a temporary, I think it's called a preventive resin restoration for adults, is also under that ITR part of statute. So all of this is already defined in statute and doesn't need to be redefined here in the rules. And then Part E, this is another part that does duplicate statute in a way, but since the board is going to be outlining what training requirements are required for ITR, we felt that this specific part should actually remain in rule because it's going to be further clarified here in rules of what training is required for the ITR permit. So whereas the other two, C and D, we recommended removing because they were duplications, this one we actually recommend keeping in statute or in rule so that it can be clarified here further. There was also under this Part E, under E2D, that says clinical evaluations of students must be performed by a dentist with a faculty appointment at an accredited Colorado dental or dental hygiene school. One of the comments that was already in the red line version of the rule stated that this came from statute, and actually the statute does not say that the evaluation of students must be performed by a dentist with a faculty appointment, and adding that in and making that distinction would actually be difficult for many of the dental hygiene programs as they don't have full-time dentist faculty members. And so we recommended not adding that in since it's not listed in statute. We also then, under that E, Part 3 and 4, CODHA agrees with removing these in accordance with the changes that were made from the Senate Bill 102 this year. And then moving down, sorry, I said there were a lot of things. Moving down into Part G, I, and J, CODHA agrees with the recommendation to remove these as they're duplicates from statute. And going down my list here. And then quite a bit down further, so now I'm in Rule 1.26 in Part D. Let's see. Oh, C4, sorry. In Part C4 of 1.26, we recommended removing C4 as dental hygienists are already required to carry professional liability insurance. And we don't need to also specify it here because that's already a existing requirement. And then in Part D, so in Part D, there was some discussion at the most recent board meeting about what they wanted an articulated plan to include, and they were talking about maybe adding some things under this section, but actually an articulated plan, the reason silver diamine fluoride got moved into the part of statute that referenced limited prescriptive authority for dental hygienists was so that it would be in the same section as all the other medicaments that dental hygienists can prescribe in Colorado. And that section already requires an articulated plan. And so the goal of many of the stakeholders was to try to streamline that and make it the same articulated plan requirements. So the board has already determined what needs to be listed in an articulated plan in Rule 1.13. And so we felt like it doesn't need to be also then hashed out here in this rule, and instead could be referencing Rule 1.13 where it's already discussed. And then going back to, sorry, sub point 3 here. So it's Rule 1.26C3. There was a recommendation by a board member to add in ADHA, or the Colorado Dental Hygienists Association, as an accepted provider of the silver diamine fluoride course, and we support this change. CODHA has been the main provider of the silver diamine fluoride live 1-hour course to meet the requirements since 2018, when this requirement was put into place. And so we agree with this recommendation and would be happy to continue being a provider of the course. So I think that's all of my items. And I did put this, I did a summary letter and then also my comments in the red line edit and submitted it for the board to see.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And this is Darcy again. Thank you for doing that. And I wanted to point out that we'll make sure that we get stakeholder comments posted on the website, because we're moving at a more quick timeline with the implementation date of this bill, and because full board meets quarterly, we want to make sure that stakeholders can see what other stakeholders have said. And I think that you did a really nice job of outlining in red line what your recommendations are on behalf of the association. And so I wanted to point out that we will be posting those comments on the board's website so everyone can see and weigh in.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised or any comments in the question section. Once again, we just want to remind you, this is your opportunity to point out issues or feedback or add to your input for the board to review before they make considerations or before they consider the revisions of the permanent rulemaking hearing. This will not be your last opportunity, for sure. We always welcome written feedback up until the day of the hearing. But we'll give it a few more minutes. And if no one has any more input that they want to provide, we will wrap up the stakeholder meeting. It's currently 2:28. We'll wait until 2:29, just in case someone is typing. All right, the time is now 2:29, and we still don't have anyone that wants to provide feedback, so we'll wrap up. Thank you for participating in today's meeting. All comments and program recommendations will be provided to the board for review and consideration before the board deliberates on the final version of the rules at the permanent rulemaking hearing. The permanent rulemaking hearing is tentatively scheduled for July 14th, 2021. And like I said earlier, if you want to provide comments, we will accept them up until the day of the hearing. You can send all of your written comments to the email address that's listed on the notice. That email address is Dora, DORA, _DPO, _rulemaking at state.co.uk. And that concludes the stakeholder meeting. Thank you again for your participation. We're going to end the webinar now.